There's a special kind of silence that happens right before speed takes over, a moment when air thickens, the horizon narrows, and instinct argues with reason. It's that razor's edge between control and chaos where engineering becomes something closer to obsession. Somewhere in that thin atmosphere, a machine emerged that didn't just chase velocity. It redefined what a street-legal vehicle could be, and in doing so, unsettled the entire world of performance. Its story isn't just about horsepower or numbers. It's about daring to ask how far human precision can push mechanical limits before society says enough. This machine wasn't built to follow trends or rules. It was built to break them. And the ripples from that decision are still felt decades later. Buckle in, because we're diving into the legend that forced an entire industry to hit the brakes. Like, subscribe, and drop a comment on which icon you want us to break down next. The Suzuki Hayabusa 1999 arrived at a crossroads in motorcycle history, when manufacturers were pushing boundaries so fast that even governments began to notice. Suzuki's engineers didn't set out merely to build another superbike. They wanted to create a statement of dominance, a technological flag planted at the summit of speed. The name itself, Hayabusa, means peregrine falcon, the bird known to dive faster than any creature alive. And that symbolism was deliberate. Suzuki intended to eclipse every competitor that had bragged about being the fastest on the planet. The 1999 Hayabusa was born in an era when power was becoming a numbers game, but Suzuki took a different route. They focused on aerodynamics. Every curve, every crease of the fairing was sculpted not by style committees but by wind tunnels and speed trials. The result was a silhouette unlike anything on the road, sleek, bulbous, and controversial. Some riders loved its organic form. Others dismissed it as strange or even ugly. But the design wasn't for looks. It was for slicing through air resistance with the efficiency of a falcon in a dive. Beneath that streamlined shell lay an engine that became legendary, a 1,299cc inline-four capable of producing around 173 horsepower. At the time, that was astonishing. More than that, it was brutally usable. The torquey curve was broad and predictable, meaning the Hayabusa didn't need to be ridden like a race bike. It could cruise calmly one moment and warp reality the next. Suzuki's engineers balanced aggression with refinement, crafting a power plant that could deliver terrifying speed while maintaining surprising composure. That duality, raw might paired with precision, became its signature. The team also obsessed over stability. At 190 miles per hour, aerodynamics become a matter of survival, and Suzuki designed the chassis to hold steady under forces most riders would never experience. The long wheelbase, the weight distribution, the bodywork, all contributed to keeping the bike glued to tarmac. Yet for all its engineering brilliance, the 1999 Hayabusa wasn't built in a vacuum. It was born from pressure, the rivalry with another manufacturer that had just claimed the top speed crown. Suzuki wanted to respond not with incremental improvement, but with annihilation. In internal testing, they reportedly hit speeds beyond 194 mph, numbers that seemed unthinkable for a production motorcycle. When word leaked, it sparked a frenzy. Magazines tested it. Riders lined up for it. Governments worried about it. In that first year, the Hayabusa wasn't just a machine. It was a headline, a controversy, and a dream all at once. But while speed dominated the spotlight, ownership revealed a subtler truth. The Hayabusa was shockingly comfortable. It could commute, tour, or sprint with equal grace. Riders discovered that beneath its aggressive legend lay a surprisingly versatile soul. It didn't punish you for riding it. It invited you to master it. And that approachability was what set it apart from so many brutal superbikes of the era. Suzuki understood that speed alone doesn't make a legend. Longevity does. They built the Hayabusa with everyday reliability in mind, using proven materials and over-engineering critical components to survive relentless use. It wasn't fragile. It was built to endure. That dependability made it not just a hero for magazine tests, but a companion for real-world riders. Yet, as much as Suzuki celebrated their achievement, they also ignited a storm. The Hayabusa had crossed an invisible line, forcing the entire motorcycle world to confront uncomfortable questions about responsibility and restraint. That reckoning would define what came next, both for Suzuki and for the global motorcycle industry. And the 1999 Hayabusa stood at the center of it all, a machine so fast it triggered an international reaction. What started as a pursuit of perfection was about to become a cultural phenomenon and a political problem. When the Suzuki Hayabusa 1999 hit showrooms, It didn't just sell, it detonated. Every test rider who twisted the throttle came back shaken, sometimes speechless, often grinning. Publications declared it the fastest production motorcycle ever made, and that statement wasn't marketing spin. It was measurable fact. The Hayabusa crushed speed records, reaching beyond 300 kilometers per hour, a number that made even veteran racers blink. The world suddenly realized a factory motorcycle could do what used to require closed-course tuning or drag strip trickery. But that revelation also sent shockwaves far beyond Suzuki's headquarters. European regulators worried the speed race among manufacturers was spiraling out of control, while insurance companies quietly began reconsidering policies for high-performance bikes. The Hayabusa had, unintentionally, made itself a political lightning rod. Behind closed doors, executives from several major manufacturers met to discuss a voluntary cap, a gentleman's agreement to limit top speeds to 299 km/h. It wasn't written into law, but it was binding enough that the next generation of superbikes all arrived electronically restrained. In other words, the 1999 Hayabusa didn't just break a record, it ended an era. That irony only elevated its legend. The machine that forced the industry to slow down became a symbol of unfiltered freedom. Riders saw it not merely as a product, but as a protest against limits, a celebration of mechanical audacity. It was powerful enough to dominate drag strips, yet smooth enough to carry you across states without a sore back. Its dual identity, superbike and sport tourer, broadened its audience. Owners learned that the Hayabusa wasn't just a missile. It was a surprisingly refined companion, capable of high-speed stability and effortless distance. The aftermarket world noticed too. Tuning shops turned the Hayabusa into a canvas for creativity. Turbo kits, extended swing arms, custom paint, everything imaginable found a home on this platform. It became the darling of the performance scene, a machine that could be tailored for any extreme. Some riders chased quarter-mile times. Others built land-speed versions that shattered salt-flat records. In every configuration, the Hayabusa retained its DNA, fearless, functional, and ferociously fast. But for all the fascination with power, the real marvel was balance. Suzuki's chassis tuning and aerodynamic design allowed that massive engine to feel predictable, not punishing. Riders discovered it wasn't the beast some feared, it was civilized, controllable, and intuitive. That accessibility built loyalty. Owners didn't just buy a Hayabusa, they joined a community. Across America, Busa meets sprang up, riders swapping stories, mods, and road trip routes. The machine had crossed from engineering achievement into lifestyle icon. Its presence in pop culture, music videos, films, posters, cemented its image as the definitive expression of two-wheeled speed. Yet behind the glamour, the Hayabusa's reputation was built on something more fundamental: trust. The bike was mechanically bulletproof. It handled abuse that would cripple most machines, and maintenance was straightforward. For American riders, that dependability meant the Hayabusa could serve as both weekend weapon and daily commuter. It democratized extreme performance, putting near race-level speed into the hands of ordinary enthusiasts. And while competitors released bikes with higher tech electronics or lighter frames, few matched the Hayabusa's holistic feel. It was raw but refined, modern yet timeless. Even the cap that followed couldn't dull its image. In fact, the restriction only made early, uncapped 1999 models more desirable. Collectors began hunting them, recognizing their historical significance, the last uncensored expression of pure mechanical ambition before the industry self-regulated. The Hayabusa had set off a chain reaction that reshaped motorcycle policy and culture alike. But perhaps the most telling measure of its influence wasn't what it achieved in numbers, but what it inspired in people. Riders felt something primal when they swung a leg over it, a mix of fear, respect, and awe. In that moment, they understood why Suzuki's engineers had built it, not just to go faster, but to remind the world what speed, when mastered, truly feels like. And as the new millennium dawned, the Hayabusa stood as both hero and outlaw, proof that performance still had the power to shock, unite, and transform. Its story was far from over, though. The legend would evolve, adapting to new eras, new riders, and new definitions of speed. By the time the Suzuki Hayabusa 1999 had settled into legend, its presence was more than mechanical. It was mythological. Every rider, no matter their background, seemed to have a Hayabusa story. It might be the first time they saw one blur past on the highway, or the friend who swore nothing on earth could match its surge in third gear. The Hayabusa wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a benchmark. Even 2 decades later, when new generations of performance bikes arrived with traction control, ride modes, and digital trickery, they were all judged against the standard the 1999 model had set. The Hayabusa's engineering principles aged gracefully because they were grounded in fundamentals: stability, torque, and aerodynamic efficiency. Suzuki didn't chase every trend. Instead, they built a machine that stayed relevant by being cohesive. Its frame geometry, while long, gave unmatched straight-line poise. Its engine, tuned for mid-range grunt rather than peak madness, made it rideable in real life. And that's why so many enthusiasts still call it the ultimate real-world fast motorcycle. The Hayabusa wasn't fragile, fussy, or intimidating. It was reliable exhilaration wrapped in speed's purest form. Over the years, revisions came and went. Emission regulations tightened, electronics grew smarter, and rivals entered the market with more horsepower. Yet none could replicate that first impact. Suzuki refined, polished, and modernized the Hayabusa, but even as horsepower climbed, the soul remained untouched. It was still the same Falcon, sleek, unstoppable, and ready to dive. Owners who kept their 1999 models often described them as time machines. One twist of the throttle and they're back in an era when analog mastery ruled. There's something almost philosophical about that connection between human reflex and mechanical precision. An honesty that modern tech sometimes filters away. And that, perhaps, is the Hayabusa's greatest legacy. It was built in a time when the human element still mattered most. Riders had to earn their confidence, develop finesse, and learn respect for the machine's potential. The Hayabusa taught discipline through speed, and that lesson shaped generations of riders. Its influence extends beyond motorcycles. In the tuning world, the name became shorthand for anything extreme. Busa-powered swapped into lightweight cars, boats, and even aircraft prototypes. It became a modular engine of madness. The aftermarket ecosystem exploded, with companies offering everything from bolt-on turbochargers to carbon fiber bodywork. Yet through all the wild experimentation, one truth endured. The base bike was so well engineered it could handle nearly anything thrown at it. Few machines invite that kind of trust. For Suzuki, the Hayabusa became a symbol of brand identity, proof that the company could outthink, outbuild, and outlast global competitors without losing reliability. It also became a flagship halo, elevating the brand's image far beyond typical sport bikes. In the US, where big engines and long highways define motorcycle culture, the Hayabusa found a perfect home. Riders used it for cross-country tours, drag racing, and everyday commuting, sometimes all with the same machine. It embodied versatility, a rare trait in the performance world. That balance between insane speed and genuine usability earned respect even among non-riders. It represented something aspirational: mastery, precision, and self-control at the edge of physics. As the decades rolled on, the Hayabusa became collectible, not just for its numbers but for its narrative. The 1999 model, especially the unrestricted versions, achieved near-mythic status. Enthusiasts call it the last of the wild ones, a reminder of when human ambition briefly outran regulation. And yet its story isn't one of recklessness, it's one of craftsmanship meeting courage. The Suzuki Hayabusa 1999 proved that engineering excellence can inspire emotion, that mechanical beauty doesn't require restraint, and that innovation sometimes means defying the rules until the rules change. Its continued relevance in motorcycle culture is no accident. Every design choice, every aerodynamic contour, and every decision to prioritize balance over flash ensured its immortality. Even today, when electric propulsion and autonomous technology dominate headlines, the Hayabusa stands as an analog masterpiece, a machine that reminds us why people fall in love with engineering in the first place. It's not about efficiency or convenience. It's about the human desire to push, to feel, to conquer wind and distance and doubt. The Suzuki Hayabusa 1999 wasn't just a product of its time, it was a declaration that time itself could be outrun. For American enthusiasts today, the Suzuki Hayabusa 1999 remains both attainable and legendary, a rare balance in a world where performance often comes at impossible prices. Used examples still circulate through classifieds and collector circles, and while pristine originals command a premium, many riders can still experience the essence of that first-generation engineering without breaking the bank. Reliability has always been its silent superpower. Even after decades, a well-maintained Hayabusa can clock astonishing mileage without drama. Parts availability is strong, the aftermarket community is vibrant, and mechanics familiar with the model remain plentiful. Yet owning one isn't just about practicality, it's about participating in a lineage. Every startup carries a pulse of history, a reminder of when Suzuki dared to test what speed could mean. For riders considering a purchase, the reality is refreshingly straightforward. Maintenance costs are moderate for a liter-plus sport bike. Tires and chains will always take the brunt, but the engine itself is nearly indestructible. Insurance premiums may run higher due to reputation, but the grin-per-mile ratio is unparalleled. And for those worried about comfort, the Hayabusa continues to surprise. It's spacious, stable, and capable of cross-state runs without punishment. In an era when electronic rider aids define performance, the 1999 Hayabusa stands apart as something pure, a machine that rewards skill, not software. It doesn't flatter in experience, but it doesn't bite unfairly either. It simply tells the truth at every RPM. That's what gives it such staying power in American motorcycling culture. It's a living bridge between analog and modern, between ambition and achievement. Its value as a collectible has already begun to climb, especially for unmodified examples. Those early uncapped versions represent a moment in engineering history unlikely to repeat. They're artifacts of a time when manufacturers were still bold enough to chase infinity. But even beyond collectability, there's emotional currency. The Hayabusa 1999 symbolizes something timeless in American gearhead DNA. The refusal to settle, the need to test limits not out of rebellion but out of curiosity. For all its numbers and myths, that's what the machine ultimately teaches. Speed itself isn't the enemy. Complacency is. The Suzuki Hayabusa 1999 challenged an entire industry, triggered self-imposed limits, and yet managed to outlive those limits through respect and reverence. Its silhouette remains unmistakable. Its legend unrepeatable. Whether sitting under garage lights or roaring across desert highways, it still carries that original defiance. The whisper that says, if you build it right enough, sometimes you can outrun fear itself. That's the Hayabusa's final gift. Not velocity, but belief. The kind that reminds us every boundary was once someone's idea of impossible, and that the brave don't just cross those lines, they redraw them.